Single dad Janitor was publicly humiliated by the CEO, but then he quietly exposed a 40 million flaw. Get that screen back online now, or we lose the whole deal. Serena Bell's voice cut through the tension in the Bloom AI conference room like glass shattering on tile. The air reeked of espresso fear and overheated servers. 35 stories above Manhattan, the future of an $80 million education tech contract was unraveling in real time. Screens flickered crimson across the smartboard lines of code tumbling like dominoes off a cliff. An executive from the Department of Education cleared his throat uncomfortably. Investors from Horizon Ventures whispered behind tightly folded arms. The algorithm demo meant to showcase OmniLearn's adaptive AI for public school systems was stuck in a recursive loop. The voice assist kept repeating recalculating input. Please wait. Please wait. No one was waiting anymore. In the far corner, down on one knee with a screwdriver in his hand, Noah Rivers watched the chaos unfold through the legs of a steel conference table. His work order had said, replace one cracked HDMI port, not witness corporate implosion. But here he was. He adjusted the wire, turned the connector, and was just about to slide back into invisibility when a quiet line on the screen caught his eye. Error, token overflow in cache stack. Prediction module failed handshake. He didn't mean to speak, but something about watching people in suits panic over the thing he could fix in his sleep had slipped out before he could stop himself. You're running 2 adaptive branches in parallel without clearing your transaction cache. It's feeding loops back into itself. The room stopped breathing. Serena's head snapped toward him like a hawk spotting a mouse. I'm sorry, what did you say? Noah stood slowly. His gray workshirt was untucked hands still smudged from the wiring panel. It's not a system failure. It's an input loop caused by stacking prediction queries. You're overloading your own cache buffer. One of the junior engineers glanced at the screen, then at Noah. His eyes widened. But before he could say anything, Serena raised a hand. And you are? Noah. I'm with Apex Tech Services. I'm just here to... I didn't ask who you're with. Serena stepped closer. I asked who you are to think you can interrupt a presentation with government partners and tell my engineers how our AI works. Her voice was calm, icy, measured, the kind of voice that didn't need to shout to make people feel small. Noah met her gaze. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just saw the code, thought I could help. Do you walk into people's houses and fix their plumbing because you saw a faucet dripping? She snapped. A few chuckles rippled across the room. Not from the clients, just the inner circle. One of the engineers muttered bold for a guy with a screwdriver and a name tag. Noah didn't flinch. Sometimes the plumber sees the leak before the architect notices the ceilings collapsing. That silenced them. Serena tilted her head. There was a flicker, just a flicker of recognition behind her perfectly lined eyes, but it vanished in an instant. You're dismissed. I just came to... You came. You spoke. You're done. Get out. Noah nodded, once tight-lipped, and picked up his toolkit. As he passed the door, one of the monitors flickered green. A junior tech whispered, Wait. The loop just cleared. What Serena turned. Who did that? The engineer looked around. I think it fixed itself. Noah kept walking. The elevator swallowed him in silence. Outside, rain clung to the city like shame. He didn't look back. 30 minutes later in her office, Serena watched the playback. She paused on the line of code Noah had pointed out. The fix had auto-rolled after his suggestion. Her team didn't catch it until the system rerouted. She clicked the video back. Frame by frame to his face, Noah Rivers. Worn collar, quiet eyes, calm under pressure. And that line he said. Sometimes the plumber sees the leak. She exhaled slowly. No file on him, she asked. Her assistant shook his head. Just a freelance tech. We've used Apex Tech for minor repairs. No formal training records, no LinkedIn, no degree, no threat, Serena murmured. But something unsettled her. Not because he'd embarrassed her, she could bury that. She always did. What she couldn't bury was the gut feeling that somehow he'd seen something her entire team had missed. And that scared her more than the red screen ever did. Down in a one-bedroom apartment in East Harlem, Noah sat cross-legged on the worn rug beside a young girl with dark curls and a blue stuffed octopus. He powered up an old laptop. The screen flickered before booting into a cartoon math game, custom-coded pixel by pixel. The girl giggled. Her name was Mia. She didn't speak much, but when she looked at her father, her eyes lit up. "Ready?" Noah asked. She tapped the screen. "Dad," she whispered softly. He smiled. "Yeah, kiddo. I'm here." He always was, even when the world tried to forget him. The rain hadn't let up by the time Noah and Mia made it home. Their apartment, tucked above a laundromat in East Harlem, wasn't much, but it was warm, and it was theirs. The ceiling fan creaked a little when it turned. The couch had a burn mark from an old soldering accident. The kitchen light buzzed when turned on too fast. Still, Mia always ran in first and kicked off her boots like they were gold. She flopped down beside the big window, tracing fog on the glass with one tiny finger. Noah set the toolkit down. He rolled his shoulders and stretched his neck. He'd been crouched under desks all day. He was just reaching for the kettle when he heard it again. "Dad." One soft word. Still hesitant, but there. He turned. Mia had her tablet open. His voice-learning program was running. She pointed to an animated fox on the screen, then to her mouth, then back to him. "That's right," he said softly. "You said it, and you said it clear." She beamed, a full smile, the kind that broke open the shadows in a room. He crouched beside her. "You're getting stronger every day, you know that." She tapped the screen. A little owl popped up and said, "Try again." "Mia." Noah looked at the code running beneath the animation, one of the last things he'd written at 3 a.m. months ago. The speech loop delay reducer. A tiny fix in the grand world of coding. But to Mia, it meant she could talk to her dad without the program freezing her voice. "You keep practicing," he said. "One day you'll be louder than every kid on the block." Mia nodded solemnly and whispered, "Promise, promise." He kissed the top of her head and stood, but something caught in his chest as he moved that voice in his head from earlier today. "Do you walk into people's houses and fix their plumbing because you saw a faucet dripping?" It hadn't been the words, really. He was used to being dismissed. It was the way the room had laughed. Like his knowledge didn't matter because of the shirt he wore or the wrench in his hand. But that wasn't the part that stung the most. It was the fact that Serena Bell had looked at him the way companies used to before they'd learned his name and decided it was too dangerous to say out loud. He pulled out a plastic folder from the top shelf. Inside was everything he didn't talk about anymore. A photo of a young woman in a hospital gown holding baby Mia. A tattered business card, Noah Rivers, CTO, Neuropath Systems. A printed article, "Data Breach at Neuropath Company, Shuts Down. Former exec under investigation." And beneath it all, a single letter never sent. "Dear Serena Bell, you don't know me, but one day you will." He never mailed it. Noah stared at the folder, then closed it gently like putting a wound back under bandages. That night, while Mia slept, he opened his laptop. A familiar blue interface glowed back. Maya Watch. A system he had built in silence born from sleepless nights and necessity. It was a predictive audit tool, one that could detect critical flaws in algorithmic systems. He'd started it to keep kids like Mia safe from buggy learning software that failed neurodiverse children. But now it hummed with purpose. He typed AGAN OmniLearn Platform, Public Demo Mode. The system went to work. While lines of code scrolled across the screen, Noah leaned back in his chair. He wasn't looking for revenge. He was looking for the truth. Because the truth, no matter how buried, had a pulse. And, sooner or later, someone would hear it beating. The next morning, Rachel Quinn stood outside his door holding 2 cups of coffee. "Still drink it black?" she asked. Noah blinked. Rachel. Don't sound so surprised. You're hard to find, but not invisible. He let her in. Rachel Quinn, legal advocate, community firebrand, and probably the only person who ever tried to defend him after the neuropath disaster. Back then, she was too young, too green. But she believed him. And she remembered. Why now, he asked. Rachel looked around the apartment. Her eyes softened at the crayon drawings taped to the fridge. Because I saw your name on a tech watch list yesterday. Again. And not for anything criminal. Just flagged. Bloom AI, he said. She nodded. Word is you fixed something they couldn't. Then got shown the door. I wasn't supposed to talk, Noah said. Not their space. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Noah, we both know that you don't walk into rooms to talk. You walk in to solve. He didn't argue. He sipped the coffee. It was too hot, too bitter. Just right. You still coding? She asked. I never stopped. She smiled. Then maybe it's time someone else saw what you've built. Noah hesitated. Rachel, it's not about fixing reputations. Mine's already. She cut him off gently. This isn't about you anymore, Noah. This is about everyone who's ever been silenced because they didn't wear the right shoes or speak the right way. You found something in their system. He didn't answer, just turned the laptop toward her. The screen showed a glowing red flag predictive branch collision. Undeclared logic root. User data exposure, risk high. Rachel's face went still. You could save hundreds of schools from a system that might crash on a kid mid-exam, she whispered. Noah just looked down the hallway where Mia was still sleeping. I just want her to grow up in a world where people listen. Before things break. Rachel nodded. Then let's make them listen. The message came in at 6:17 a.m. Effective immediately, Apex Tech Services is no longer authorized to fulfill contracts at Bloom AI headquarters. Violation of client trust. Further assignment suspended until internal review is complete. Noah stared at the email on his cracked phone screen. There was no explanation beyond the phrase violation of client trust, no appeal link, no human contact, just a digital door slamming shut in his face. He exhaled slowly, thumb hovering over the screen. This wasn't the first time he'd been quietly erased, but somehow this one felt different. Maybe because he hadn't done anything wrong. Maybe because this time he was right. Behind him, the morning news murmured on the tiny TV in the corner. Mia sat cross-legged in her pajamas pouring cereal with laser focus. She looked up and smiled when their eyes met. Dad, she whispered. Yeah, baby, is the Fox game ready? Noah forced a smile. Almost. Just fixing the last level. He tucked the phone away. She didn't need to know. Not yet. She didn't need to hear that the man who made her smile every day was being shut out of rooms because of one quiet sentence. Because he'd spoken up. Because he hadn't worn a badge that said he belonged. By noon, it had spread. One by one, other freelance portals flagged his profile under internal review. Pending verification. Not eligible for new jobs. By 2:00 p.m., even the janitorial work orders were gone. Noah sat in front of the laptop, hands curled into fists. The Mia watch scan still blinked on screen, pulsing softly with the words, breach vector confirmed. Risk index severe. But what use was truth if the system punished those who told it? He leaned back, eyes closed. His mind wandered to Serena Bell. The way she'd looked at him like he was something unpleasant on the sole of her Louboutin heels. The kind of look that didn't ask, are you right? Only how dare you? Across town in Bloom AI's executive suite, Serena Bell sipped from a cup of bone-white coffee and tapped through her morning reports. Mr. Parks from Horizon Ventures is still asking for a post-mortem on the OmniLearn loop, her assistant reported. Tell him it's already been resolved, Serena replied. System recovered. Temporary caching issue. Should we credit anyone? Serena's finger hovered over the trackpad. Then she looked up, voice flat. No. The assistant hesitated. "There's one more thing. A technician from Apex, Noah Rivers. He's been calling the dispatch line. Says he was flagged unfairly." Serena barely blinked. "Terminate his contract. Log an incident report. File it under breach of boundary and unprofessional conduct." "But ma'am, no one's actually," I said. "Terminate." The room fell quiet. The assistant left. Serena exhaled and leaned back. Something about the name still stuck in her throat. Noah Rivers. The way he had spoken so clearly, so calmly. It was unnerving, not because he had been wrong, but because he hadn't. And worse, because he'd said it out loud in front of people who mattered. Her screen lit up again with a Slack notification. "Ava Kim, Junior Software Engineer. Quick question about last week's cache stack error. I reviewed the logs and the fix applied matches the anonymous suggestion made before demo recovery. Should we file an internal attribution?" Serena stared at the message, then deleted it without replying. That evening, in the back booth of a quiet coffee shop, Noah met Rachel again. She slid a folder across the table. "These are screenshots from 2 of your client dashboards. Your ratings dropped from 5 stars to pending review within 24 hours. Noah didn't look surprised. "They're burying me without digging a grave." Rachel nodded. "But I did some digging of my own. Serena Bell personally flagged you as a hostile presence. No formal charges, just a whisper in the right ears." He exhaled, slow and quiet. And just like that, a man becomes a cautionary tale. Rachel leaned in. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You're not a story, Noah. You're a witness." He looked at her, and for the first time some of the weight cracked through. "You ever get tired of fighting for people who never cared whether you got back up?" Rachel didn't blink. "Every day. But then I remember what my father used to say. If someone builds a wall around the truth, make sure you're the one with the hammer." A beat passed. Noah smirked just slightly. "Your dad sounds like trouble." He was. "So are you." She pulled out a flash drive. "This has your audit report from MIA Watch, cross-referenced with federal data privacy statutes. You know what it proves? That they're vulnerable." "No," she said, "that they're negligent and vulnerable, which means you're not just a guy with an algorithm, you're a whistleblower." Noah rubbed a hand down his face. "You're suggesting I go public. I'm suggesting you start small. Quiet, just enough to make them squirm. You don't need a spotlight, you need a pressure point." He considered that. A pressure point. Not revenge, not spectacle, just leverage. "I don't want to hurt anyone," he said softly. "I just want my daughter to grow up in a world where someone like me doesn't have to beg to be heard." Rachel reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. "Then, let's make that world." Meanwhile, back at Bloom AI, Ava Kim stared at the silent reply screen from Serena. She minimized the window and opened the audit logs again. Line 443. Patch applied at 1447, UTC matches input syntax from anonymous observer. She clicked the entry and muttered under her breath, "You're not invisible, Mr. Rivers. Not to all of us." She hit save renamed the file The Fix they never credited. Then she tucked a USB drive into her purse just in case. Because some truths don't vanish when ignored. They wait, they whisper, and eventually they rise. Noah sat at the kitchen table long after Mia had fallen asleep, hands clasped in front of him like a man preparing to pray or surrender. But he did neither. Instead, he opened the manila folder Rachel had left behind. Inside was the case file he thought he'd buried years ago. Neuropath Systems, 2017. He had been CTO of one of the fastest-rising AI startups in the health tech sector. Back then, they weren't building learning games for kids, they were building diagnostic tools for early-stage neurodegenerative diseases. Noah had helped architect an algorithm that could flag signs of Parkinson's from tremor patterns in keystrokes. The technology had been revolutionary. Until it wasn't. Until it leaked. One breach, one misconfigured cloud key, and suddenly medical data from over 300 patients had been compromised. Panic spread, investors fled, and the board wanted someone to blame. Noah remembered the meeting like it was a fever dream. "We need you to sign off as the point of failure," the CEO had said, eyes cold as audit trails. "Take the heat and we'll protect your shares." "Your future?" "My future," Noah had asked. "You're asking me to take a bullet so the brand lives." "You're the most expendable C-level. No family, no press," except he did have family. He had Emily, his wife, the woman who'd been battling late-stage lymphoma, spending nights on a hospital bed lit only by the blue glow of a heart monitor. She needed insurance, stability, dignity. So Noah had signed. One stroke of the pen and the man with the voice became a ghost. Now, all these years later, Rachel's notes screamed the same truth he'd tried to forget. Breach path confirmed. Initial leak not originated from CTO systems. Covered internally to protect Series C round. She had found the forensic proof. Someone else had made the mistake. He had taken the fall, and Bloom AI was trying to bury him all over again. Noah closed the folder and let out a breath that had waited 5 years to escape. The next morning, he walked Mia to school like always. They passed the same cracked sidewalk, the same bodega with the cat on the counter, the same mural of Maya Angelou painted across the brick wall of PS 142. Mia clutched his hand tighter than usual. Her eyes scanned the school gate. Crowds of children spilled in, some running, some clinging to parents. She turned to him and whispered, "Will, they know Noah knelt down." "Know what, baby, that you're not like them?" He blinked, stunned. "Where did you hear that?" "I heard Mrs. Klein say you don't have a real job," she said softly, eyes wet but unblinking. "And that's why I didn't get the special school." Noah froze. Mrs. Klein was the school's admissions coordinator, the one who had sent the rejection letter when Mia applied for the developmental therapy program. He swallowed hard. "Come here," he said, pulling her close. "Look at me." Mia did. "You know what's real?" he asked. "Every night you spend learning new words. Every smile you give when you figure out a new game. Every time you try, even when it's hard. That is real. You are real. And what we have, what I do, matters." She wrapped her arms around his neck. "Dad. Yeah, I want to speak loud. So people know." Noah smiled into her shoulder even as tears burned behind his eyes. "Then let's make sure they listen." That evening, back in their apartment, Noah opened a blank window on his laptop. He pulled up the source code for MayaWatch. He hadn't intended it to be more than a private tool, a way to make sure Mia's programs didn't break her confidence the way the world had broken his. But now it had to be more. He began coding again. Not just to flag errors, but to trace data flow in real time, predict vulnerabilities, and log hidden privilege escalations in learning platforms. He created a sandbox simulation for OmniLearn, plugged in public API calls, and let the system crawl. At 9:42 p.m., MiaWatch flashed an alert: unauthorized data loop detected, memory bleed into analytics tier, child learning profiles potentially exposed. He stared at it, heart pounding. This wasn't a theoretical glitch. This was a violation. Children's private learning behaviors search terms, mistakes, even speech inputs were being sent to a third-party analytics firm for pattern mapping, without parental consent. That wasn't just a technical oversight, that was a COPPA breach. The Children's Online Privacy Protection Act made it illegal to collect or distribute personal information from users under 13 without verified parental permission. Every ed-tech company knew that. It was law, not suggestion, and Bloom AI was sitting on a ticking time bomb. Noah picked up his phone and called Rachel. "I need you to see something," he said. "I'll be there in 20. They sat together, Rachel scrolling through the report on his laptop, her fingers tightening around her mug. "This isn't just negligence," she said. "This is actionable. Can we prove intent?" "Not yet, but we don't need intent to prove risk. The statute is clear. And if a company knew about this and didn't act, her eyes met his. That's enough for federal inquiry. Noah leaned back. Do we go public? Rachel shook her head. Not yet. You're not ready for that storm. But we can go strategic. What do you mean? We leak just enough to make the right people nervous. Offer quiet audits to the school boards. Let the clients discover what Bloom AI tried to bury. Noah looked down the hallway toward Mia's room. He didn't want to be famous. He didn't want revenge. He just wanted the systems to work for the people they were meant to serve. He looked back at Rachel. Let's make some noise. And across town, in the silent glow of Bloom AI's downtown office, Serena Bell scrolled through her inbox. Another investor email. Another request for transparency. Another tension headache pressing between her eyes. She opened her desk drawer and stared at a silver pen she hadn't touched in years. Engraved on the side. You don't have to be loud to lead. You just have to be right. It had been a gift from someone she once trusted, someone who had betrayed her, or maybe someone she had silenced before hearing the full story. The first email was sent at 8:03 a.m. Subject: Free Security Audit for EdTech Systems. Handling Children's Data from K. Williams, Chu, MIA Watch Labs Body. If your organization uses adaptive learning tools or AI-enhanced platforms for students under 13, I invite you to run a complimentary audit using MIA Watch. This service detects latent vulnerabilities and potential COPPA compliance breaches. No contracts, no publicity. Just truth, clean and simple. By 8:17, 3 superintendents had opened it. By 8:45, the first reply came in. We've had doubts about Bloom AI's transparency for a while now. Let's talk. Noah sat at his desk watching the replies stack like dominoes. Each one wasn't just an opportunity, it was a door that until now had been welded shut. He didn't use his full name. He didn't need the credit. Not yet. He just wanted the system to speak for itself. And it did. MiaWatch scanned faster than most enterprise-level platforms. It flagged silent data loops, unprotected API calls, and weak encryption around student audio files. But more importantly, it left a paper trail. Every audit was signed, time-stamped, and archived. Immutable. Truth, clean and simple. Noah leaned back, rubbing the bridge of his nose. He'd forgotten what it felt like to build something that could walk without him. That afternoon, while Mia napped on the couch with her stuffed octopus under one arm, Rachel dropped by with a tray of coffee and a look he hadn't seen before calculation. You're not going to like this, she said, sitting down. But it's necessary. Noah raised an eyebrow. You say that every time you're about to drag me into something insane. She handed him a folder. Bloom AI just posted a request for third-party audit partners. Quiet internal. No press. He flipped through the pages. They're panicking. They're stalling, she corrected. They've had 4 clients request a clarification on their compliance status each after running your audit. He paused. They don't know it's me. They will, and soon, which is why I submitted a formal proposal for MiaWatch to be included in their partner shortlist. He looked up sharply. Rachel. I didn't use your name, she said calmly. It's listed as a community-integrated platform run by a team of independent developers, which technically you are. I'm one guy, not anymore. She slid another sheet toward him. A new logo. MiaWatch Labs, underneath clarity before code, dignity before data. Noah traced the edges of the printout. He whispered, what if they trace it back to me and shut it down? Rachel smiled. Then we'll build it again. Smarter, stronger, louder. A pause. And this time, you won't be alone. That night, Serena Bell sat at the edge of her apartment balcony, glass of untouched wine in hand. The skyline blinked like a system on standby. Her phone vibrated beside her. From Ava Kim. Subject FYI attached internal error log and anomaly report. MiaWatch source match. Probable origin, Noah Rivers, Apex Tech. Serena closed her eyes. So it was him. She'd known deep down, but seeing it in print confirmed what her pride refused to admit. The man she had dismissed, humiliated, blacklisted, was the very person saving her company from implosion. She stared out into the night, the weight of her own silence pressing against her chest. She had spent years perfecting the art of control, of never owing anyone, of never being wrong in public. But the code didn't lie, and neither had he. She picked up the engraved pen from her desk drawer, the one given to her by a mentor who once said, "The most dangerous person in any boardroom isn't the one who shouts. It's the one who already knows they're right and doesn't need your permission to say it." She had become everything she used to fear a gatekeeper of silence, and Noah Rivers had just kicked the gate open. Across the city, in a dimly lit tech co-op nestled behind a Vietnamese sandwich shop, a 20-year-old software engineer named Jonah Castillo stared at his screen in disbelief. Jonah had joined the Bloom AI support team 6 months ago, excited and full of purpose. But the more he saw behind the scenes, the more uneasy he became. There were data flags that went unreported, inconsistencies brushed off with "we'll patch it later." Now, running a MIA watch scan on his own copy of the platform, he was seeing what no one had dared name. "Dude," he whispered to his roommate, "this thing, it found everything. Who made it? I don't know." Jonah said, heart-pounding, "But they're not playing games." He pulled a flash drive from his drawer and made a copy. Truth, clean and simple. It deserved to be seen. The next morning, Ava Kim knocked on Serena's door before 8 a.m. Serena looked up. "You're early. I couldn't sleep." Ava stepped into the office and placed a small USB drive on the desk. "This is from a tech in our West Coast branch. Unsolicited. Same audit, same red flags. Different region, same code." Serena stared at the drive. "Why bring it to me? Because the board is going to ask soon. And when they do, you'll have to choose." Serena's gaze sharpened. Choose what Ava didn't flinch, whether to keep pretending you're leading, or actually lead. A pause. The air between them thickened. "You know, Ava added you once told me that power comes from clarity. But I think Noah already knew that. You just didn't like that he said it out loud." Serena said nothing, but she didn't look away. Ava turned to leave. As she reached the door, Serena's voice stopped her. "Schedule a private meeting with him." Ava turned. "You're not going to sue him." "No," Serena said softly, almost to herself. "I'm going to ask him what else he sees that we don't." In a city built on noise, a man who'd once been told to stay silent had built something louder than any shout, and it was only just beginning to echo. The elevator opened with a hush that felt too soft for the conversation Noah was walking into. Bloom AI's headquarters stood pristine as ever. Glass walls, polished concrete, curated modern art. Everything designed to look transparent while hiding everything that mattered. Rachel had tried to talk him out of it. "They'll want to control the narrative," she warned. "You step into that room, they'll twist every word you say into a PR strategy." Noah had nodded. "Let them try. I'm not going to tell a story." He stepped into the 22nd floor conference room with a calm that surprised even him. The air conditioning hummed. A pitcher of untouched cucumber water sat in the center of the table like a prop. Serena Bell was already there, standing. No assistant, no legal team, no defense line, just her. She looked up. Her voice was quieter than he remembered. "Thank you for coming." "I didn't come for you," Noah said, placing a flash drive on the table. "I came for the kids your system forgot." She nodded once like she expected that, maybe even deserved it. He remained standing. "I reviewed the MIA Watch logs," Serena said. "You identified 16 separate vulnerabilities in under an hour." 17, Noah corrected. "You missed one. Your speech-to-text library still calls home to a deprecated server. It's exposing metadata." Serena's jaw tightened. She didn't challenge him. Noah leaned forward slightly. "You were going to let it slide, weren't you? Until the client started asking questions. She didn't answer right away. Then, you don't know what it's like trying to hold a company together with venture money breathing down your neck and competitors waiting for you to blink. Don't tell me what I don't know, Noah said evenly. I held my wife's hand while she died on a hospital bed because I was blacklisted and couldn't afford better care. I know what it's like to be crushed between survival and silence. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Serena looked down her fingers, clasping one another tightly. I didn't know, she said finally. You didn't ask? A beat of silence passed between them. Heavy. Honest. I want to fix this, she said. Why now? Because if I don't, Serena replied, I won't be able to look at myself again and call it leadership. Back at MIA Watch Labs, still technically Noah's dining room, Rachel watched the email come in on the shared dashboard. Subject urgent, multiple client requests to pause Bloom AI contracts. Audit links traced to anonymous tool MyAWatch. From internal Bloom AI ops attached were 6 names: school districts, foundations, a pediatric hospital, all pulling back, all demanding transparency. Rachel looked up at Jonah, the young programmer Noah had taken under his wing. They're unraveling, she said. Jonah grinned. Feels weird seeing truth move this fast. It's not fast, Rachel said. It's just loud now. Serena gathered her executive team that same afternoon. Effective immediately, we're pausing all deployments of OmniLearn until we've completed a full third-party audit. The boardroom erupted. You can't be serious, barked Richard Eng, head of product strategy. We're 2 days from the state tech pitch. We'll lose funding, said Carla in finance. Postpone, and we lose our window. Serena stood firm. Better we lose money now than face a class action lawsuit in 6 months. David McAllister, COO, frowned. This smells like surrender. Who exactly is doing this audit? Serena didn't blink. His name is Noah Rivers. Dead silence. You're bringing him back into the building, David snapped. The janitor with the savior complex. Serena's voice was ice. No, I'm bringing in the man who found what none of you did. Later that night, Serena sat alone in her office. She stared at a photo on her desk, her and her younger sister laughing on a beach a lifetime ago. Her sister had been different. Diagnosed with ADHD at 10, shuffled from school to school. The system never knew what to do with her. Serena remembered watching her struggle with software that called itself adaptive, but punished every mistake like failure. She remembered promising herself she'd build better tools, better pathways, a company that wouldn't forget kids like her. Somewhere along the way, she'd traded that promise for quarterly returns. Noah had reminded her of that cost. And somehow, he didn't do it to shame her. He did it to warn her, like the code he wrote, direct, unflinching, honest. She picked up her phone and dialed. Noah answered on the second ring. You coming to shut me down? He said. No, Serena replied. I'm coming to learn what it's like to listen again. A pause. Then she added, I'll be at your office tomorrow. There was a beat of silence before Noah replied with the quiet power of a man who had nothing left to prove. Just don't expect cucumber water. In a city built on power, 2 people who had once stood on opposite sides of silence now stood at the edge of something far more dangerous. Respect. And in the margin between redemption and ruin, truth finally had a voice. Noah didn't know what time it was when the knock came. Late enough that the street was quiet, early enough that he hadn't yet shut his laptop. MyAWatch was still running a silent scan across a third-party tutoring app Bloom AI had recently acquired. He hadn't told Serena yet. He wasn't sure if she was ready to know. He opened the door expecting Rachel or Jonah. It wasn't either of them. It was her. Serena Bell stood in the hallway, coat damp from the misty hair slightly undone from what he assumed had been a very long day of pretending to have all the answers. She wasn't wearing heels this time. Just sneakers. And exhaustion. Noah stepped aside without a word. The apartment was small. Honest. It didn't pretend to be anything it wasn't. The walls were lined with Mia's crayon art, and the air carried the faint scent of lavender and solar. Serena walked in and looked around like she'd just entered a different country. "I didn't expect the drawings," she said softly. Noah closed the door. "She draws before she talks. It's how she translates her world." Serena nodded. "I used to paint. Watercolors. Before I started managing people who can't manage themselves." He gave a half smile. "What happened?" "I stopped needing beauty and started chasing control," she said without hesitation. Noah motioned toward the worn couch. She sat folding her hands like she was in a deposition. He sat across from her, not touching the laptop still glowing on the dining table. She looked at him long and searching. "I didn't come to apologize. I didn't ask for one. I came to understand." She took a breath. "You didn't just find our system's flaws. You exposed our values." Noah leaned back. "Systems don't fail because of bugs. They fail because people in charge think their name tag makes them bulletproof." Serena stared at the floor. "When I started Bloom AI, I wanted to fix the world my sister got lost in. She had ADHD, dyslexia, sensory, sensitivity, the works. Every school she went to treated her like a software glitch." Noah softened. "And you tried to build something that wouldn't treat kids like her that way. I thought if I just made it smarter, faster, more precise, it would understand them better." Her voice cracked slightly. "But all I did was make the same thing, just shinier. We sold precision, not compassion." Noah looked at her for a long moment. "You know what compassion is in code. What grace? Margin. The space for a child to fail without being labeled. The algorithm's job isn't to be perfect, it's to stay curious." Serena smiled. "You code like a teacher. I parent like a coder," Noah replied. "Test, debug, repeat." She laughed softly. It was the first real laugh he'd heard from her, the kind that didn't belong to the boardroom version of her. She leaned forward. "I want to invite you to present Maya Watch during our internal strategy summit." Noah raised an eyebrow. "You sure your investors won't riot? Let them." Her eyes locked with his. "If they want to invest in a future, they need to see the one we've ignored." He didn't answer immediately. Serena added quieter, "You gave me something I didn't know I'd lost accountability. And I'm trying to give you something back." Noah met her gaze. "What's that A seat at the table?" He stood and walked to the window. Below, the city shimmered in its usual hum, taxis, crosswalks, a rhythm that never quite slowed. "You know," he said, voice low, "it's strange. For years, I've been trying to build something good enough to deserve that seat again. And now that you're offering it..." Serena waited. "I'm not sure I want it." She blinked. Why, Noah turned. "Because the table was never built for people like me. And if I sit at it, I'd rather rebuild it entirely." Serena smiled slowly. "Then let's build a better one." He nodded, once a silent agreement between two very different people who had somehow ended up in the same fight. From the hallway, the soft creak of a door. Mia shuffled out, clutching her octopus. Serena stood instinctively but didn't move toward her. Just watched. Mia blinked at the stranger in her house, then looked to her dad. Noah smiled gently. "Come here, baby." Mia patted over and buried herself into his side. Her eyes never left Serena. "She doesn't usually come out for strangers," Noah said. Serena crouched down, careful, open-palmed. "Hi, Mia. I like your octopus." Mia didn't speak, but she didn't run. That was enough. Serena stood. "I should go." Noah nodded. At the door, she paused. "If we get this right, kids like Mia won't have to work twice as hard to be seen." "She doesn't want to be seen," Noah said quietly. "She wants to be understood." Serena looked back at him, something raw in her voice. "So do I." Then she left. Noah closed the door and sat down on the couch. Mia curled into his lap. He looked out at the city that had once shut every door to him. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like a man locked out. He felt like a man who'd found the blueprints. The elevator dinged open with the soft chime of inevitability. Noah stood beside Serena, both of them staring at the hallway ahead as if it were a courtroom. In a way, it was. Bloom AI's Executive Summit wasn't designed for redemption stories. It was designed to reassure investors, deliver data, and celebrate success with a smile made of steel. But today, there was a new item on the agenda. And it had a name. Maya Watch. Serena adjusted her blazer, then turned to him. You don't have to prove anything today. Noah looked at her calm as always. Then why did you invite me? She hesitated. To remind them, she said softly that innovation starts when ego shuts up. They stepped into the boardroom. The room was bright clinical. Floor-to-ceiling windows spilled morning light over rows of executives and stakeholders. Everyone looked well-fed, well-paid, and comfortably removed from the kids their technology was supposed to serve. David McAllister, the COO, leaned forward as they entered. Belle, is this your idea of a marketing stunt? This, Serena replied crisply, is your idea of a product that works. She nodded toward Noah. Mr. Rivers will walk you through a recent third-party audit that uncovered 17 critical vulnerabilities in our flagship product. Vulnerabilities our own team missed. Gasps. Murmurs. David stood. You're admitting liability in front of clients. Noah stepped forward, voice calm and resonant. She's not admitting failure. She's acknowledging risk and choosing to address it while we still have time. A pause. The room quieted. Noah continued. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Noah Rivers. I'm a software engineer, a single father, and a former CTO who learned the hard way what it means to be the scapegoat when systems break. He clicked the remote. The screen behind him flickered to a dashboard, a simplified version of the MIA Watch interface. This isn't just code. It's a mirror. The screen highlighted Bloom AI's data routes, looped segments, unsecured endpoints, metadata flow breaches. And this, Noah said, pointing is where we lost the plot. We built faster, smarter systems. But we forgot the most essential part of education software context. Not just what the child clicks, but why. Not just how fast they learn, but how safely we carry them through the process. Someone near the back raised a hand. And how exactly does your tool solve that? Noah smiled. It doesn't. You do. This system just shows you what you've chosen not to look at. The room went silent again. Then came the voice that always followed truth. Doubt. David stood again, voice rising. Let's be clear. This man ran an unauthorized scan on our systems, shared results without consent, risked our contracts, and you're now asking us to trust his mirror. Noah didn't move. I didn't run that scan out of spite. I ran it because your software nearly broke a program my daughter depended on. He took a breath. And I didn't share the results to shame you. I shared them to warn you, because silence is a privilege, and I don't have that anymore. He looked toward Serena. None of us should. Serena stepped forward. In the last 2 weeks since implementing MIA Watch's suggestions, our system stability has increased by 43%. Our customer support tickets regarding error loops have dropped by 58%. But the most important metric isn't in those numbers. She paused. It's in the message I received from a teacher in Ohio. She said, for the first time, the software didn't make my neurodivergent students feel like they were doing something wrong. She looked around the room. That's not marketing. That's mission. Outside the conference room, Rachel stood with Mia in the lobby. Mia wore her favorite cardigan and clutched her octopus. She didn't speak, but her eyes scanned every detail of the Bloom AI headquarters. The marble, the light, the people in heels walking too fast to notice her. Want to know a secret? Rachel said, crouching beside her. Your dad used to build things that flew through the air like birds. Mia looked up wide-eyed. Rachel smiled. And now he builds things that help people listen. Which in my book is even harder. Mia tilted her head, then whispered, Is he winning? Rachel looked toward the glass where she could just barely see Noah presenting. She smiled. He already did. Back inside, David leaned on the table. What happens when investors pull out because we partnered with a whistleblower? Serena turned to him. Calm, direct. They won't. David scoffed. You're that confident. No, she replied. I'm just no longer afraid. Then she looked at Noah. Because fear builds walls, and I'd rather build windows. Noah exhaled quietly. For a moment, he didn't feel like a technician, or a founder who lost everything. He felt like a father, finally being heard not for the noise he made, but for the silence he refused to accept. Later, as they stepped into the hallway, Serena asked quietly, "Why did you come?" He looked at her. To give the truth a seat at the table, he said, even if it meant I had to bring my own chair. She stopped walking. You don't have to bring your own anymore. He smiled just a little. Good, because mine was getting pretty worn down. They both laughed, quiet, exhausted, a little stunned by how far they'd come. Then Serena added, almost as an afterthought, "There's something else." "What's that? I want to talk to you about an idea. Something permanent. Something shared." Noah raised an eyebrow. What kind of idea she didn't answer yet. But the look in her eyes said everything. And just like that, the trial ended. Not with a verdict, but with a beginning. The auditorium inside the State Education Council building was nothing like the glassy boardrooms of Bloom AI. The seats were worn, the microphones crackled, and the lighting flickered with the kind of bureaucratic fatigue only a government budget could produce. But the room was full. School administrators, technology coordinators, nonprofit leaders, and policy analysts sat shoulder to shoulder. Some carried notepads. Others came with folded arms and wary expressions. They weren't here to be impressed. They were here because they'd seen the audit, and they wanted answers. Noah adjusted the collar of his second-hand dress shirt in the wings. He hated ties. Hadn't worn one since the neuropath hearing 5 years ago. But today, he wore one for Mia. Rachel stood beside him reviewing final notes. "They're not going to make this easy," she murmured. Noah nodded. "They shouldn't." He looked toward the stage. On the far side, Serena was already seated behind the panel desk. She caught his eye, gave a single nod, half professional, half personal. They were no longer on opposite sides of the table. But they weren't the same person yet, either. "Time?" Noah asked. Rachel glanced at her watch. 3 minutes. Noah exhaled. His mind drifted not to code, not to strategy, but to a little girl with dark curls who once whispered "Dad" like it was a question. In the third row, Mia sat between Jonah and Ava legs, swinging, clutching a small sketch pad. Her octopus rested in her lap like a quiet good luck charm. She didn't understand the politics of it all, but she understood something big was happening. And her dad was the reason. "Mr. Rivers," the moderator called, "you have the floor." Noah stepped into the light. A low murmur passed through the crowd, recognition, curiosity, the quiet hum of people wondering what he was doing here. He approached the podium without notes. He didn't need them. 5 years ago, he began. "I lost everything I thought made me matter. Silence. I was a CTO. I built neural platforms for early diagnosis. Then a system failed, and because I was the easiest to blame, I became the face of that failure." He looked across the rows of decision-makers. "I spent years trying to rebuild a reputation the world had already erased. I did it quietly while repairing tablets, fixing motherboards, and teaching my daughter how to speak using code I wrote on a laptop older than some of your software." A ripple of discomfort moved through the crowd. "But this isn't about me," Noah said. "It's about what we choose to hear and what we're willing to ignore." He clicked the remote. A slide appeared, a visualization of an audit from Mia Watch. Points of vulnerability lit up like stars on a night map. "This is your data, your systems, your children's privacy slipping through cracks you didn't know existed." He turned back to the audience. But they existed. They always did. You just didn't have someone willing to show them to you. A superintendent stood up. And you think you're that someone Noah met his gaze. No, I think I was lucky enough to build the tool that could. But the truth, any one of you could have. You just didn't ask the right questions. A murmur of agreement. Another voice. And what do you suggest we do now? Noah smiled. Start by listening to the people you stopped seeing. The repair tech, the classroom aide, the child who clicks the wrong button 3 times in a row because she's thinking faster than your software allows. He paused, then added design systems that assume brilliance, not compliance. The room went still. Because it hit. Because it thumped in the chest like something you forgot you believed in. A moment passed, then another, then applause. Not polite, not performative, earnest, real. Afterward, Serena joined him near the stage exit. I've been in this room 6 times, she said. Never heard it that quiet. Noah glanced at her. They weren't quiet. They were thinking. She looked at him for a long beat. You know you could walk away now and still win. Noah shook his head. I don't want to win. He looked toward Mia, who was showing her sketchpad to Jonah, her newest drawing, a square room with a window and stick figures smiling inside. I want to build something she can belong to. Serena nodded slowly. Then let's do that. Together. Later that evening, in the modest co-working space that now served as the new home for MIA Watch Labs, Noah stood before his small team, Jonah, Ava, Rachel, and 2 new hires they'd just onboarded, both previously laid off from major firms, both carrying brilliance shadowed by burnout. They weren't trying to disrupt the industry. They were trying to repair it. Serena arrived near sundown. She walked in with a small box in hand and handed it to Noah. He opened it. Inside was a nameplate Noah Rivers, Chief Architect, Maya Watch Labs, underneath clarity before code, dignity before data. Noah looked up at her, and something in his chest, finally, settled. You kept the tagline, he said. She smiled. You earned it. That night, after everyone had left, Mia curled up beside him in the office's reading nook. Did they hear you? She asked, eyes sleepy. Noah wrapped his arm around her. Yeah, he whispered. They heard us. She nodded against his chest. Good. Because I was drawing so loud in my head. I think it helped. He kissed her forehead. It did, baby. It really did. And somewhere in that quiet, crowded city, a new kind of room was being built. Not for those who demanded to be heard, but for those who'd waited their whole lives for someone to finally listen. The invitation came in the form of a text message. From Serena Bell. Message, you once said the table wasn't built for you. What if we built a different room altogether? Noah stared at the message for a long moment. Then he replied. Tell me when. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when Serena walked him through the old community center on 46th Street. It used to be a library, she said, keys jangling in her hand. Then a nonprofit. Then it sat empty. The air inside smelled like dust and memory. The walls still carried chipped paint from children's murals long gone. Sunlight broke through cracked blinds. This is where you want to start? Noah asked, skeptical but curious. Serena looked around. No boardrooms, no pitch decks, just one room, one table, one idea. Noah crossed his arms. You're not building another tech company, are you? No, she said, her voice steady. I'm building something slower, something honest, a learning space, co-run by educators, coders, parents, a testing ground for tools that actually help. He was quiet for a beat. Then, and you want me to lead it? Noah, she said, stepping closer. I want to build it with you. I've had my turn at the top. Now, I want to learn what it's like to build something from the ground up with someone who remembers what the ground feels like. Noah looked up at the ceiling. There were no glowing lights, no smartboards, no air of disruption, just wood and dust and the possibility of something real. I'm in, he said. Serena let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. They named it the Listening Lab. It started with 4 laptops, a whiteboard, and 3 kids from the local public school who wanted to learn how to code but hated math. Noah taught the first workshop. Rachel hosted the second. Jonah turned the third into a Minecraft plugin tutorial that went semi-viral. Within weeks, a retired teacher volunteered to run reading sessions in the back. A local diner donated snacks. A librarian who'd once been laid off brought in a box of old educational software, outdated but still useful. It wasn't magic, but it was working. One afternoon, Serena sat on the floor beside Mia, helping her adjust the brightness on her custom tablet. She doesn't like the automatic settings Noah explained from across the room. They flicker when she's thinking too fast. Serena smiled, adjusting it manually. Then, let's slow the settings, not the girl. Mia looked at her. Then for the first time she spoke to Serena directly. "Do you make rules?" Serena blinked. "Sometimes." Mia nodded. "Make good ones." It was less a request than an instruction. Serena laughed gently. "I'll try." Noah watched the exchange, something unspoken blooming in his chest. That evening, Serena stayed behind to help him stack folding chairs. "You're not bad at this," he teased. "Chair stacking." "Please." "I graduated atop of my class." He grinned. She leaned against the wall and looked at him. "Can I ask you something honest?" "You've earned it." "Why didn't you give up?" Noah didn't answer right away. Then, because Mia didn't. Every time she failed a task or got skipped by an algorithm, she'd go right back in quiet, stubborn, determined, like the code had to adjust. "Not her." Serena's voice softened. "You sound like a man who never lost faith." He met her eyes. "I did, but she held it for me until I came back." They stood there in the fading light, the room still humming with the presence of small miracles. "I never thought I'd say this," Serena whispered, "but I'm glad the algorithm failed." Noah tilted his head. "Why?" "Because if it hadn't, I would have never looked deeper. I would have never met you. Never met her." He took a slow step closer. "She's not the only one who doesn't give up." Their eyes held each other. There was no dramatic music, no scripted climax, just 2 people who had been torn down, burned out, rewritten, and who now stood quietly side by side, not because of what they'd fixed, but because of what they were still learning to build. Together. Later that night, Noah walked Mia home through the city. She held his hand, her other clutching the sketch pad she refused to let go of. "What did you draw today?" he asked. She opened it. Inside was a picture of a room with wide windows and 3 people standing inside, a tall man, a woman in a dress, and a small girl with stars around her head. Underneath, in careful blocky letters, Mia had written, "The room that hurt us back." Noah stopped walking. His throat tightened. He knelt down, cupped her small face. "Is that what this feels like to you?" She nodded. "Safe." He kissed her forehead. "Then, I guess we're doing it right." And as the city buzzed around them, lights blinking in patterns only machines could understand, Noah realized something he hadn't dared believe in years. They weren't just fixing systems. They were healing people. One line of code, one small voice, one listening room at a time. It was a quiet Sunday morning. The kind of morning that didn't ask for anything dramatic, just coffee sunlight and the hum of something real growing beneath the surface. Noah stirred creamer into his cup while Mia sat at the window sketching. The old apartment, once filled with the silence of rebuilding, now held the soft clutter of life again, lunchboxes on counters, worn shoes by the door, and the laughter of a girl who no longer needed to hide behind drawings. Her latest masterpiece, a giant jellyfish wearing sunglasses. He chuckled. Is he a superhero or just fabulous? Mia didn't look up. Both. Fair enough. Later that day, Serena arrived. Not with her usual stride and coat and boardroom energy, but in jeans, her hair tied back, holding a cardboard box and wearing a look Noah had come to recognize, not business, not performance, just her. "You brought more books?" he asked as she stepped inside. "Books and—" She grinned, pulling out a folder, a charter proposal. He raised a brow. "For what?" "A partnership. Between Bloom AI, the Listening Lab, and 3 community colleges who want to adopt our hybrid program." He blinked. "Wait." They said yes. Serena nodded. "All 3. They want to pilot it next fall. Human-led tech, trauma-aware software, real-world inclusion built in." Noah slowly sat down. For a moment he couldn't speak. This wasn't a second chance. It was a new beginning. She placed the folder on the table but didn't let go just yet. "Noah," she said, voice lower. "Now this wouldn't exist without you. It wouldn't exist without us," he corrected. Then he paused. "And her." They both turned toward Mia, who was now drawing stars around the jellyfish. Serena smiled softly. "She's our compass." That night they held a small celebration at the lab. Just a few close friends, the first group of students, and 2 teachers who had once been told they were too old to learn code. Someone brought cupcakes. Someone else brought their dog. Mia brought her sketchpad and sat proudly at the front desk like a manager who couldn't be bothered. Serena clinked her glass. "I just want to say this." She looked at the room. "I've spent most of my career trying to be the smartest person in the room. But this is the first time I've ever wanted to be the one who listens the most." Heads nodded. A few clapped. Noah stepped up beside her, looking around at the mismatched chairs, the tangled cords, the faces still carrying hope despite the headlines outside. "This lab wasn't built on funding," he said. "It was built on frustration, on failure, on people who were told they weren't enough, too quiet, too messy, too behind." He paused, finding Mia's eyes in the crowd. "And yet here we are, still writing, still drawing, still learning, together." After the party, when the lights dimmed and the last hug was shared, Serena lingered by the door. Noah was wiping down a table, half humming to himself. "Do you ever think about it?" she asked. "About what?" "If we hadn't crossed paths." He stopped, turned to her. "I think about it every day." Serena's voice dipped. "I was drowning, and I didn't even know it. You didn't save me with code or speeches. You saved me by staying." Noah stepped closer. "You didn't need saving. You needed someone who wouldn't flinch when you broke." She looked at him. "And now, I'm still here." He took her hand. "Serena," he said gently, "you don't need to prove anything anymore. You've already built the thing that matters." She tilted her head. "What's that?" He touched her heart. "This." A few weeks later, they held a soft launch for the Bloom X Listening Lab pilot. Mia stood in front of the class with her drawing tablet now upgraded with accessibility tools her dad coded by hand. She clicked play. The screen displayed a new project, a series of animated modules teaching kids how to code using stories and images, not just numbers. Her voice, quiet but steady, came through the speakers. "Sometimes I don't use words, but I can still say things. This is my language." The room fell silent. Then applause. Mia turned to Noah, who was filming from the side eyes misty. He gave her a thumbs up, and she smiled a smile that didn't ask for permission or translation. Just acceptance. That night, as the city blinked beneath them and the lab closed its doors for the evening, Noah, Serena, and Mia walked home together. The streets were quiet. Not empty, just calm. Noah carried Mia on his shoulders, her arms wrapped around his forehead. "She's getting heavier," he said. "She's growing stronger," Serena replied, looping her arm through his. A beat passed. Noah looked over. "So are we." She smiled. "Yeah, we really are. And for the first time, not as CEO and janitor, not as broken people trying to fix things, but as equals they walked forward. Not into a perfect world, but into a better one. Built with patience, held by grace, and coded in love. If this story touched your heart even just a little, then maybe it wasn't just a story. maybe it was a reminder that no voice is too small, no past too broken, and sometimes all it takes is one person, willing to listen. Before you go, we'd love to know where in the world are you watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. You're part of this journey too. If stories like this move you, inspire you, or simply help you breathe a little deeper, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next one. And finally, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for spending your time with us today. Your presence means more than you know. Until next time, take care, stay kind, and keep believing in second chances.